Okay, so now we're live on YouTube. Yay! Chanel, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to hand it over to Jordan, our official host, once again.
Yes, so thank you for joining us, Chanel.
Yes,
We are here for the Day of Silence Western New York, and we're with our wonderful guest, Chanel Lopez, which is the New York State Deputy Director of LGBTQ plus affairs, and the first in the position, and also Latina, which is exciting as well.
Yes, we're super excited. I'm so excited for you to be here with us. And I know that we wanted to give you a little bit of time to talk about your personal experience. We were going to do some Q&A, but maybe what we should do for the purposes of this recording is to just go down the panel and have everyone, if you don't mind, just reintroduce yourselves just really quickly, and then we'll get into, Chanel, if it's okay, what you were prepared to share. Perfect?
Perfect, yes.
Sure. Hi, my name is G Swords. I'm the programs manager at GLIS Western New York, and I use they, them pronouns. And I was just really grateful that Talia invited GLIS to be a part of this conversation today. GLIS is a subchapter of the national organization GLISEN, who is the founder of the Day of Silence event. So this is an event that's very close to us. And I myself, as a survivor of bullying, am extremely passionate about this issue and making sure that the youth that we work with, especially our local youth, know all of the resources and all of the support that they have.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I'm so excited for your participation and for you to be supportive, and also for you to continue the work of GLISEN on the local level, in addition to what you already were doing and what is specific to our neighborhood, which we know in Buffalo, everything is always a little different or special. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Burgos. I work doing statewide advocacy on behalf of the LGBT community, communities of color, and the underserved. I am passionate about creating and building better legislation and working with various branches of government to make sure that our communities are taken care of. But I am also a survivor of bullying, and I've worked throughout my career in many different facets, but I used to work with LGBTQ youth at MoCA Buffalo. And so I'm very aware of the struggles and challenges that our LGBTQ youth face, especially those who are of multiple intersections and marginalization. So particularly students who are LGBT, but also people of color, students of trans experience. And so I'm very passionate about this because I believe the opportunities that we create now for our students and our youth to be seen, to be heard, the platforms that we give them determine the future opportunities that our community will have as a whole. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So my name is Talia. I'm the creator of Latina Her Story. For those of you who are meeting me for the first time, I am a community leader here in Buffalo. I am the coordinator for the Western New York Women's March, and I am also a columnist. I have the distinct privilege of writing about Chanel this month. She is my Latina Her Story feature. So if you go to our Facebook, you'll be able to see this live stream. And if you go to www.makinglatinaherstory.us, that's my shameless plug, Chanel, for your piece. Navigate over and read it. And we're just really proud to be able to celebrate Chanel and provide a lived example for all of our students and neighbors about, to Alex's point, what life is like when you succeed and you're in a supportive community. Now, I just wanted to thank you again and then tell you at any point if you want to take over and start your sharing. But I know that today you were able to share with us a video this morning, which we shared on Facebook, about why you're so passionately anti-bullying. And I'm so grateful for that. So I didn't know if you wanted to add to those comments or if you wanted to start us off. But we did read your bio, I think, amongst each other privately and our prior live.
Yes, oh my God, I can just go right ahead. I'm so excited. Thank you so much, Talia, and everyone else for making me thinking of me and making me your choice for this month to bring awareness to bullying. I am passionate about this because growing up, I was bullied myself for being always too feminine, and I'll just start with introducing myself and go on from there. My name is Chanel Lopez. I go by she and her pronouns. I am a trans woman of color, Afro-Latina, born and raised in New York City, back then called El Barrio, now it's called East Harlem. I lived back and forth between Boston and New York City. Also lived in Dominican Republic. One of my first jobs, once I got out of school, was working for the Bronx Community Pride Center, which was an organization that provided services to LGBTQ youth ages 14 to 21. They're no longer around. The organization closed, but it was back in 2005, 2007. And there I experienced how a lot of the kids were growing up and being bullied and, experiencing all forms of abuse, from sexual abuse to bullying to domestic violence to, families shunning them. And, it was unfortunate that the organization closed, but, I continued the work of advocacy. I ended up working at the New York City Anti-Violence Project, where we didn't see much youth, but we did work with adults were who were survivors of sexual violence, domestic violence, hate violence, and even stalking. There I was very passionate because I got to learn myself. I was sexually assaulted as a 5-year-old, thinking when I was young that it was okay because I was young. But working at AVP, I learned that it wasn't okay. And so that made me even want to advocate more for our youth. Then from there, I worked for about I want to say about a good 7 years at the Anti-Violence Project. And from there, I started working at the City Commission on Human Rights. I was the transgender community liaisons there. It gave me the backbone that I needed. And the reason I say that is because I got to learn very well what the law consists of and the protections that my community had, and they were protections that none of us knew were in place here in New York City. And from there, I worked there for 3 years, and I ended up applying here for the governor, and that's how I ended up becoming the first trans woman of color to be deputy director of LGBTQ affairs here at the governor's office.
That, I think, so exciting. I have so many personal reflections because, as I shared, when I did the original reading of your piece at Fitz Books and Waffles, I see so much of myself in you. But I'm going to defer to the rest of the panel and see if anybody has any first impressions that they want to share, and then I will circle back and kind of share what I thought. But you're truly remarkable. I mean, all of the positions and the places that you talked about, to me, really are places of champions. So I don't know if any of y'all had any reactions, but I'm really excited for you just to spend some time with us to talk more.
Well, I mean, obviously you're near and dear to my heart and a really good friend. And so,
Yeah.
You had the opportunity to recognize the work that you've done and get it on the news. I was absolutely ecstatic. And I'm so excited for you to come back to Buffalo and be with us in person. And we can definitely celebrate the work you've done here. But I think, you are a testament to the power of resilience, the power of never giving up on yourself, and the power of taking the things that you've experienced and turning that into something beautiful, right? So you've taken something that was so painful and so hurtful, and you've turned it into something that's so beautiful and magnificent, and that has inspired so many young people throughout the state. And I mean, I can say probably for every single one of us here, and I know me personally, you've inspired all of us in this room in some way, shape, or form. And I'm super excited for that to grow, and I'm super excited for you eventually to become the first trans elected official in New York State.
Yes. it's getting tough here.
We'll get signatures for you.
I'm in the right direction. I'm in the right path.
I'm just so excited. Thank you so much. Did you want to have a reaction?
Yeah, I mean, just to echo Alex's point, I'm so excited always every time I get to talk to my youth about the fact that we actually have an LGBTQ affairs office, which a lot of them don't know. And then I'm like, and a trans woman of color gets to run, and they're like mind blown. And it's because there are so few folks in our community that are actually representative of the lived experiences that our youth are having right now. So few people for them to look up to. I love being able to say, hey, look at someone like Chanel Lopez. She's overcome all of this stuff. She's in this position. And so like sharing that with my youth, it's so impactful. And so I just want you to know that I see all of that work that you're doing happening, even on the local level, even with our young kids. And they see you, they know who you are. We talk about your work. And so you're impacting those future generations in an absolutely incredible way.
Thank you. Thank you.
I just want to echo everything that everyone has said here. You've inspired me in so many different ways. I will say this, I was unaware that we had an LGBTQ. And I feel disappointed in myself for not knowing that, because I am a community leader and I share a lot of information. Now that I'm aware of the office and that you're the deputy director of, and that you, like they said, trans women to serve of color in that position, it just shows you that anybody is capable of anything you put your mind to. And like Alex said, determination is just amazing.
And
So thank
how
you.
fun to find out to be invited to an event, Chanel. And to be like, oh, and by the way, we would love for you to be the host.
I know.
Come to this event. Thank you so much for joining us. And Alex said a little bit about layered intersectionality of identities. I know you touched on a couple of your parts of your lived experience. Just is there anything that anyone on the panel wanted to ask Chanel or pose to the panel about identities or the intersection? I know publicly, can I apologize? I tried to make you Puerto Rican. Chanel, I'm so sorry for that, but it was coming out of a place of love. But I know that you are in fact Dominican, and I'm so proud of that. Did anybody have any questions, or did you want to talk a little bit more about kind of what those intersectionalities mean for you as a public servant?
You know, I know when you first said you have first called me Puerto Rican, I said no, I'm Dominican. But you know, the fact of the matter is that we are all human, right? Just because I'm not Puerto Rican doesn't make me less human, right? Or just because I'm Dominican, it makes me more better than anyone. We're all human. We all, if we was all to cut each other right now, we are all gonna bleed. We are all gonna bleed red, right? But I feel in terms of identity, I've always identified myself really as a trans woman of color, Afro-Latina. That's who I've always, that's what I've incorporated. That's who that's how I identify. We are all Afro-Latinos in some ways. And I stick to that.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I made sure to include that specific language in our print. So Chanel's piece is actually carried in print all across the state in Central and Western New York. And I made sure to use that exact term because I think word choice is so important.
Yes.
And I'm so proud of all different parts of the term that I was like, okay, yes, I was so excited. And I think I embedded it in that I thought our government was going to be better having you there and having you, the strength of your perspective in making decisions, right? Because I always say, I always caution against having homogeneous voices. So it's so important that there's distinction and people understand unique experiences. So you're coming from downstate, but we're here upstate. I think maybe I'd want to ask the panelists and you kind of maybe what's the thing that you think connects the experience of the students the most? Because I know in some ways it's so similar and in some ways it's so different. Anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I know from our perspective, Bliss services around the 8 to sometimes 9 counties that incorporated in Western New York. And I just hear a lot of youth saying there are no resources, upstate, downstate, sideways state, there may be more resources in the New York City area or the central area, but in general, we are all experiencing a gap in access to the services that we need, and also just the peer support piece. That's what I hear most from students, is being able to interact. GLIS just had our big youth leadership conference this past few weeks, and some of the youth were telling me, this is the first time I've met another like trans person. This is the first time I've met another person experiencing a disability. And so for them to be able to meet and connect, that's what I see. And I think that's so powerful about what Chanel is bringing to the position as well, is that you are showing that all of those pieces of your intersectional identity matter equally, that one part is not louder than another part, and that all pieces of a human being and all pieces of your experience are equal and matter. And that's so impactful for our youth, because I feel like a lot of times they feel like they have to silence part of who they are, or prioritize a part of their identity to receive community or to be included in a part of community.
Yeah, and I just wanted to echo what they said is, again, a lot of people feel like they have to, when they're in, of intersectional identity or multiple layers of marginalization, they do feel like they have to pick and choose. So oftentimes, I think sometimes in the Latino community, maybe people who are Afro-Latino may not feel welcomed in the general community, or they may identify more with different segments of the community and so forth. Or perhaps, people who are women in the LGBT community may not feel welcomed in certain spaces. And so they either shy away from those spaces, or they go to spaces that are more catered to them, or they create their own. But I think a lot of it too is that when we think about intersectionality and people not having to choose, is that they should be welcomed in all of those spaces, right? So whether you identify as a mixed person or a biracial person, you should be able to mix and mingle in any one of those spaces. Or if you're someone in the LGBT community who is underrepresented, or statistically is a minority group within the LGBT community, you should still be welcomed in general LGBT spaces. So
absolutely. And just to say, and just to touch upon that's Alex, you're so right. And this is why creating diversity in these spaces is so important, right? That's why I understand the concept of infinity groups when they create them, but I don't think they are as useful as a diverse group. Because for me, when you create, let's say, an infinity group, you're shutting people out who want to learn, but because they feel they're not part of that group, they are, they'll shy away, like you said. And that's why I always say creating diverse spaces is so important.
I am so grateful that this is a private but public panel, because I think when I think about my own identity and why it's so easy in my mind for me to be empathetic, is because I'm biracial. And I feel like I was saying, Chanel, I was biracial before the Gap commercials, like before it was cute in Western New York. And I got I felt being I think the language that was used here was prioritizing part of your identity. Like I always felt like I had a pit, or some days I woke up and I didn't feel like I was supposed to feel where I was. And for me, when there were conversations about fluid identity, I got it. I was like, of course, because people feel different ways. And for me, I think that was based on the fact that I had been put so much pressure on being biracial. Like, well, what do you mean you're two things? Or your mom doesn't speak Spanish. Mom does not speak Spanish, that definitely affected my ability to explain myself as a Latina woman, right? Like my mom not being able to speak Spanish. So let's talk about language. And I'm going to also allow everybody to ask their questions. My husband Jordan is here. He is a behind the scenes person. I have encouraged him to come to the screen, so you could say hi to him. We hope you'll meet him in person. We have a question that I wanted to read, and then I wanted to give the panel the rest of the time to ask their question that they had thought of. And I also wanted to take the time to acknowledge Anaya JC, who I believe is with us in the comments. She is an advocate. She is a part of our committee. She is an advocate for MMIGW2S, which is Missing, Murdered, and Indigenous Girls, Women, and Children.
Mhm.
It was really important for me that she be part of it. Chanel, I know she's really proud of you. She's in the chat, so she may have a question later. So hi to Anaya, JC, thank you so much for you and your advocacy on behalf of the Afro-Indigenous
Yes.
community.
Yes.
Shout out to Anaya. So I just wanted to ask my cousin Jordan's question, which has now become our question. And I'm just gonna read it as it appears on the screen, okay? And it's, as you know, there are hundreds of bills being introduced that are against the LGBTQIA+ community. A majority of them are against the trans portion of our community. This is what Jordan considers, and I consider, to be modern day bullying. Before freedoms were granted to our community as a whole, I think he means our Latino community, we had to work our way up there. What advice do you, Chanel, what advice do you have for our community who feel like they are being targeted or bullied, and they feel like their platforms are being stripped away from them or their rights are being threatened, specifically for the trans or people of color community?
You know, this is why it's so important to vote, because a lot of the times we feel that our voices are not heard, and so we don't go out there and vote. I was one of those before who used to be like, oh, I'm not gonna go vote because my word doesn't matter. And then what happens is we end up having these type of people in office who don't even know about our community, who don't know. It's like, I was having a conversation earlier today with someone about abortion, and I want to say 90% of the people that are voting against that are trying to create these laws are men who have passed their prime. They're like 80 years old. Why are you even worried about how someone identify, what someone wants to do with their body? Why is it that also I have conversations with people like, you have a problem with a drag queen telling a story and bringing awareness and diversity to a community, but you don't have a problem sexualizing these 5-year-olds who are on stage competing in a pageant, half naked with 10 pounds of makeup on and hair, all done up. You don't have you, and I seen that to be such double standards. And this is why it's so important. Remember, the people you have in office are the people you put in there.
Yeah.
So you go and you knock on those doors and you make them listen, and you fight like hell for everyone to have a right.
Yeah, Chanel, thank you. I know that I went door to door during the Empire Pride Agenda as a part of our work at St. John Fisher, and I was really, really privileged to be able to have that experience. I know I wrote in your article, which I'm going to continue to mention in your feature, that I'm very proud that Latinos are part of the largest demographic of incoming voters in our largest states, right? So the young Latinos were leading the pack. I'm very proud of that. So for those of you who may be interested in learning to register to vote, you can reach out to, I think, any of the panelists here, as well as call the office at SUNY Buffalo State. We have an Office of Civic and Community Engagement, and we would be happy to register you to vote. If not,
Yeah.
we'd be happy to send you a post-it with the day you are allowed to be registered to vote, and we will be there for you. So, Chanel, thank you so much for bringing to light the role our voting plays in advocacy. And I believe Anaya has a question in the corner, so I may just leave my seat so I can read it. Or if, Jordan, do you think you might be able to just like go to the corner so can you snap a photo for me of the photo of the screen? of the screen, just because Anaya has a question up there. Or you could read the question. Jordan's scared of being a narrator, so we're gonna get your question, and I'll just read it for you. But I'm really excited that you're with us in the chat tonight. Okay, the question is, my first impression is piggybacking off of everyone else, but to say that you are a strong, resilient Afro-Dominican woman, I strive to be like you as a part of the Afro-Indigenous, as I strive to be like you as an Afro-Indigenous two-spirit woman. And I thank you for that.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you.
And acknowledging Anaya's Indigenous community, I believe she is from the Mohawk community, and I'm very proud of her mom, who's also a board member for Open Buffalo. So thank you to Anaya for your advocacy. I want to turn it over to the panel. I know, Alex, I'm not sure if you had a question, but I know I had encouraged everyone to ask a question when they came. I'm not sure if we asked them already.
So let me ask you, and this is probably a very broad question, but what is it that drives you? What is it that keeps you going? What is it that keeps you on track with your purpose?
My purpose, you know, what keeps me on track is making a difference, trying to show my community that we're more than just what we are portrayed to be. And let me explain that a little. When I first decided to transition about 15 years ago, I went to a friend of mine and we started speaking about the whole, you know, HRT replacement. And she told me, listen, if you want to be a trans woman, you're gonna have to be a sex worker because they won't hire us. They don't give us the opportunities that we need. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to be able to show my community that we can be, and I'm not saying there's something wrong with sex work. There's nothing wrong with it. You know, I'm not against it. But there's so much more for us than what we have been taught to believe. And that's one of the reasons I strive to become a better, it starts with myself also becoming a better person, and being able to just keep going and showing my community that if I was here, you can be here too.
I love that. I'm just elated to write about you as a political force and a public servant. Like it's really powerful for me. Jordan?
Yes, so for me, my question is, well, guys, what is your talk show name then?
You have your talk show, and I'm trying to get Jordan's talk show to come to my channel, which I've invited you to. So we all tune into everybody. Jordan,
But
go ahead.
no, in all reality, where do you see your political, like, where do you see your career going in the next, like, 5 years? Like, what do you want to see yourself achieve? What are some of those things?
Definitely want to run for office.
So
Yes, I need to shake up the house a little. Definitely running for office. I don't know yet what if I want to go for city council or state senator, but that's my 5-year plan.
Awesome. And one more question before I go. Just recently, I used my voice to stick up for the trans community as somebody who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community. You know, I'm openly gay and I've been that way my whole life. But my question to you is, do you think it's important for people in the community to use their voice when they feel it's necessary?
Absolutely. I believe it's necessary. Like I said before, when we don't speak, we're not heard. And even if you don't identify as a trans person, but you are an ally. And I must say, there are a lot of the times there are a lot of gay men who don't defend trans women, who don't understand the concept of being a trans person, who don't support the trans community. There are many gay men out there. So the fact that you are using your voice to defend the trans community, I applaud you and I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Chanel. We're so excited. I think that it's beautiful to have this space. And I'm really grateful for you being so authentic and for you to come into the space so full and wholeheartedly. Is your question?
Yeah, I think the thing that I was kind of talking with my youth a little bit about, hey, I'm gonna be on a panel where Chanel Lopez is gonna be there. What do you know? And I just see a lot of, especially young trans women, you know, of very, you know, diverse backgrounds, are just feeling really disempowered right now by a lot of the anti-trans rhetoric that's going on just nationally and internationally. And so just to that new generation, those young trans women, what are some words of encouragement or empowerment that you would have for them?
Yeah, and that's what these anti-trans bills are meant to do, right? Is to keep us quiet and keep us behind closed doors and have us scared of being who we want to be, living in our authentic selves. And I say, don't let that happen. Don't let it happen. Educate, I still educate my family. Educate your family, and the reason why it's so important to vote for some. You can't say you love me and you voting for someone who's against me. So that's why it's so important. Just be your own advocate. Be the type of be the person you want to see in the future. Make some noise, knock on some doors, yell at people's office and the policymakers and the legislators. Yes, we are our own best advocates.
Thank you for that. That is really powerful. Did you have a reaction?
Oh, I just think that's powerful. I'm emotional. It's powerful.
I know I'm emotional too, but I'm happy.
Yeah, it's good. It's like.
So we did have one more question from our organizer. I just wanted to say a bit though, as a historian, I think some people have a notion of Latinos or of Puerto Rico or of the indigenous history of the Caribbean as if it was in the lens of our European colonizers. But many historians and academics will tell you that we defined our own identities in ways that we found empowering that didn't often mirror the bifurcated gender system that we have today. So, and that is a historical fact. I feel like I am qualified to say that, Chanel. So to your point of educating yourself, I think it's really important that we take from our indigenous communities. And this question comes from Anaya JC. And her question is, and we're gonna end with this if this is okay, if you could give any advice to our young youth who are struggling to come out to their families or communities, and what would it be? If different from anything that you've said so far.
Come out when you feel it's necessarily and it's safe.
Right.
Right? I don't want to tell someone come out to your family because I knew since I was 5 years old that I was born in the wrong body. But I didn't come out to my family till I was 25, almost in my 30s, to sit and have a conversation with my family to let them know that, hey, I'm miserable living a double life and I want to be authentic and happy and be myself. And that means that the person who I am inside is a woman. And I want that to reflect in my external self. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. My mom thought she failed. She questioned herself so many times. My dad till this day, 15 years ago, told me that I would never speak to him again and he would never speak to me unless I become the son that he brought into this world. And I had to straight out tell him, if you can understand me and if you can accept who I am, then that means our relationship will not go further than this. And 15 years later, I still haven't spoken to my dad. But
Sorry, Sheila.
Huh?
I was just of Mark, who shared in unison, and he shared a very similar story about his father and how you creating a moment for other people to share those moments and how powerful that is.
Yeah. And this is also why in a lot of the community, in a lot of the LGBT community, we form extended families. so that we can find that support that we're looking for that we cannot find in our actual family. We find it in the support of our extended family.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just elated. I want to encourage everyone to learn more about communities that they feel they could better advocate for. I read my piece that I wrote about Chanel. It's on Instagram, but I'll hopefully be doing another public reading. I often read my column as spoken word. So what I wanted to do, if it's okay, Chanel, I wanted to close the space by reading a poem of a seventh grader. She wrote about MMIGW2S, which is part of our program that is championed by Anaya JC, which is Missing Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirits. So just, again, solidarity for all of those who are fighting for liberty. And thank you to our panelists. And Chanel, and did you want to say anything in closing before I read the poem?
I just want to say once again, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for so much, Sadia, for choosing me to write about. And it's actually been so empowering for me to be a part of this panel, to create a video about bullying, and just all the love I've been receiving on social media, especially on Instagram. Thank you so much. That I owe you so much. And I was even more happy when I heard that you knew Alex, and I was like, what? That is my baby. So yes, thank you so much for having me, and I it's truly an honor.
Oh, I'm elated, and I just want to acknowledge where I met you. I met you at the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus. So thank you to the organizers of that convention. You are all formally invited, if I can do that, Chanel. So I would encourage those who are in the audience to visit the page and learn more about that event. It definitely changed my life. Chanel, I just want to thank you again, and I'm going to close our space. It's a very short poem, and again, it's in solidarity with our Indigenous community who are advocating to raise awareness about their missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits. And it begins. I still think about her. She wore a red dress the day she vanished. She was taken from me. No more stolen sisters. Am I next? Liani, grade 7. And then Anaya sent me something that says Two-Spirit. Two-Spirit is a term used with some Indigenous communities encompassing cultural, spiritual, sexual, or gender identity. The term reflects complex Indigenous understanding of gender roles, spirituality, and the long history of gender and sexual diversity in Indigenous cultures. Well, thank you for today, and thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do, Chanel.
Thank you.